Tonight, a spiraling news cycle of violence sparks fears of a wider regional war. Iran launches a barrage of ballistic missiles targeting Israel.
Go! Go! Go!
Israel vows retaliation as Ottawa delivers new urgent warnings to Canadians.
And it is time to leave Lebanon now.
Potentially crippling North American port strikes freeze supply chains and how it could affect prices for consumers.
Nothing's gonna move without us.
Migrants gamble with their lives on a notorious train in the desperate journey for a better life.
They can't hold on to the train, and it devours them.
Sean Diddy Combs hit with an explosive wave of new sexual assault allegations.
The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward.
And running into some stiff competition. The GOAT crashes a Canadian half marathon.
I kind of thought he probably chased the runners.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Much of the world is holding its breath tonight for the next move in a dramatic new direct confrontation between two longtime enemies in the Middle East. Millions in Israel rushed to shelters as ballistic missiles from Iran lit up the sky in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Iran says it was retaliation for the killings of the leaders of Hezbollah and Hamas, Iran's allies. But Israel's prime minister warned tonight that Iran made a big mistake and it will pay for it. CTV's Heather Wright on the escalation and the fears.
Sirens wail over Israel as a barrage of missiles rain down across the country. Iran fired roughly 180 ballistic missiles at Israel today, including this one that hit near Tel Aviv. One man was reportedly killed by missile shrapnel in the occupied West Bank. The IDF says so far there have been no reports of deaths or serious injuries in Israel, with most missiles shot down by air defense systems like the Iron Dome and by support from the United States.
But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective.
Still, the attack marks a sharp escalation of a long simmering conflict.
Iran probably has somewhere in the vicinity of 3,000 ballistic missiles, and so they can make this long and painful for Israel if they so desire.
The salvo fired today, retaliation according to Iran's Revolutionary Guard for the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, and Abbas Nilforushin, an Iranian general who was killed in the strike that took out Nasrallah.
I know everybody's been saying we are trying to avoid a regional war, but I think when Israel's bombing the Houthis in Yemen and targets in Syria and invading southern Lebanon, I think we have to just accept that this has already expanded to more of a regional conflict.
In a separate incident, multiple people were killed in an apparent terror attack in Jaffa, just south of Tel Aviv. Officials say the two shooters were killed by police. Iran's attack comes on the same day Israel launched a ground invasion into Lebanon, where hundreds have already been killed and thousands displaced.
There is huge pressure inside of Lebanon right now, politically, humanitarian-wise, and with all the other groups that are in there. It's going to be a destabilizing effect for some time.
Global Affairs says it has helped approximately 300 Canadians leave the country in the last few days, with the minister again urging people to get out while they can.
If you are offered a seat, please take it. And it is time to leave Lebanon now.
Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called Iran's attack reckless and said Canada supports Israel's right to defend itself against this attack. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. And as Heather mentioned, the U.S. says it helped shoot down those incoming Iranian missiles. Today, the Pentagon revealed American Navy warships fired about a dozen interceptors. And for more, let's bring in CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon. And Joy, the U.S. Vice President today said she was in the Situation Room with the President, monitoring the attack in real time. What else did Kamala Harris reveal, and what did her adversary, Donald Trump, have to say?
Well, Omar, the crisis in the Middle East is affecting the race for the White House. Both campaigns reacting very quickly. Donald Trump told supporters there would be peace if he was in charge, but he didn't say how. Kamala Harris showing that she's very involved, as you say, in the Situation Room, and she vowed that U.S. will support Israel. Let's take a listen.
I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist militias. My commitment to the security of Israel is unwavering.
I've been talking about World War III for a long time, and I don't want to make predictions because the predictions always come true. We're not going to make, but they are very close to global catastrophe. We have a non-existent president and a non-existent vice president who should be in charge, but nobody knows what's going on.
Enjoy this dramatic escalation unfolding just hours before tonight's vice presidential debate. What was the reaction from Tim Walz and J.D. Vance?
Omar, right off the bat, they were asked about the crisis. Tim Walz seemed a bit nervous, but he got his groove back, defending Harris, saying that she offers steady leadership at a very dangerous time. And he took shots at Trump for pulling out of the Iran deal, moving them closer to a nuclear weapon. Now, J.D. Vance, Trump's self-described attack dog, he came out swinging, repeating Trump's mantra that peace through strength, that will make the world safer. Both candidates trying to do no harm to the top of the ticket. They battled over immigration, climate change, and abortion, top issues for voters. Both nominees are trying to move that small sliver of undecided voters in this extremely tight race for the White House in what will likely be the last debate we're going to see, Omar.
Potentially the last debate of the U.S. election campaign. All right, Joy, thank you. Another key issue in the debate, Helene, the hurricane's death toll rising to more than 150 as families struggle to find essentials like water, food, and the fate of missing loved ones. The desperate search for survivors growing more dire, with hundreds still unaccounted for.
We looked outside and there was a 30-foot tall wall of water and rocks and tree debris just coming at us, and it knocked the house straight down with all of us in it. She went one way and I went the other. The last thing I said to her was, "I love you." And that was the last time I saw her.
Entire neighborhoods in North Carolina demolished. Thousands of National Guard troops are working to clear debris and bring in supplies to help overwhelmed communities. Tens of thousands of port workers have walked off the job on both sides of the border across the U.S. East and Gulf coasts. And in Montreal, Canada's second largest port, the city's port authority says that after just one day, more than 11,000 containers of cargo have been delayed and 5 ships are on standby. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin of the potentially crippling consequences to the North American supply chain and the impact on consumers.
Nearly half of the U.S.'s ocean shipping is now on hold. More than 45,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association walked out, this for the first time in half a century. The move stops most trade through some of the busiest ports in the U.S.
Nothing's going to move without us. Nothing.
Cargoes of fresh fruit, clothes, machinery, and medicine are idling, not loaded on or off container ships.
Everything from asparagus to raspberries to pineapples and bananas come in on the East Coast. So it could affect grocery prices for consumers in the U.S. And, in some limited cases, and I'll stress the fact that these are limited cases, some of that produce is shipped up into Canada as well.
The employer group U.S. Maritime Alliance says it has hiked its offer for wage increases of 50% over 6 years. But 11th-hour negotiations failed to bridge a gap over salary demands and over limits on the use of automation.
No work without a fair contract.
This a day after Montreal dock workers began a 3-day strike, shutting down 40% of container traffic. Clearing the backlog could take several days. This is a 1-2 punch to the East Coast supply chain that Canadian small businesses worry could add up to a major blow.
Retail, businesses in construction, businesses in manufacturing, wholesale, agriculture. Those businesses rely heavily on a fluid supply chain.
Though many businesses had prepared for a strike, sending shipments early, analysts say this could send a chill through the economy. And this is happening with the holiday season right around the corner and has some businesses calling for port and rail transport to be deemed an essential service. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
The Conservatives' second attempt to bring down the government in as many weeks has failed. The Liberals survived another non-confidence vote with the support of the NDP and Bloc Québécois. But it could be the last time the Liberals have the Bloc on their side. CTV's Michael Couture explains.
Je déclare la motion rejetée. With the help of the NDP and Bloc Québécois, the Liberal government survived another non-confidence motion. But support from the Separatist Party could be slipping.
What we ask for, nothing.
Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet says there will be no negotiation on his party's pension bill. The Bloc wants the government to give royal recommendation to the plan that would extend a 10% top-up to old age security for seniors aged 65 to 74. The designation is needed for public funds to be attached to bills. The cost of the top-up could be $16 billion over 5 years, but the Bloc believes there are other places the government can cut.
Between 10 and 13 billions of dollars a year are being given to oil and gas industry, which does not need it.
Now, the Liberals aren't saying that the Bloc bill is too expensive, but Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is hinting that.
We need to act in the interests of all Canadians. Yes, seniors, but also their children and their grandchildren. And part of doing that means making wise decisions about the use of scarce resources.
Now, the Liberals have to balance those scarce resources with other priorities and programs, which also carry a political calculation.
The Liberals have so many other segments to prioritize in the GTA, in BC, for example, to really reconquer that younger voter that has abandoned the Liberals.
The Bloc Québécois has given the Liberals a deadline of October 29th. If they refuse, Blanchet says they'll start negotiating with other parties to bring down the government. Omar.
All right, Mike, thanks. And workers in 4 provinces got a small bump to the minimum wage today. In Manitoba, up 50 cents to $15.80 an hour. $17.20 in Ontario, an increase of 65 cents. In Prince Edward Island, it's now $16 an hour. And in Saskatchewan, now $15 an hour, the same as Alberta's minimum wage, the lowest in Canada. A new low for Boeing after the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board issued a warning to dozens of airlines worldwide. The federal agency that investigates aviation incidents says some Boeing 737 planes could be fitted with dangerous parts. CTV's Sarah Plowman reports.
Another blemish for Boeing. Last week, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board issued an urgent safety alert over a defect that could cause the rudder to jam on some 737s and NG jets. This week, the chair of the agency slammed regulators for downplaying the urgency of the issue, warning the problem could exist in at least 40 foreign air carriers.
Very unusual for the U.S. NTSB to be issuing a letter of this nature.
It all stems from an investigation into an incident in February when United Airlines pilots reported the rudder pedals on their 737-8 MAX were stuck in neutral. The plane landed in Newark safely with no injuries.
The component in question right now is the rollout guidance actuator. Now, when the pilots are doing an auto land, it controls the direction of the aircraft when it's on the ground.
CTV News asked several Canadian airlines whether their aircrafts also had this rudder control system. WestJet confirmed its fleet does not. Flair Airlines noted it follows all safety recommendations issued by Boeing and regulators. Air Canada and Sunwing have yet to respond. Boeing has had a series of safety issues after a door-sized panel blew off a 737 MAX mid-air and 2 fatal crashes in 2018 and 2019. The plane manufacturer faces intense scrutiny. Officials with Boeing had no comment today, but previously said it informed affected operators in August. The U.S. regulator says it's sending notices to international airlines, while Transport Canada notes that the U.S. regulator and Boeing are investigating. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
New and disturbing allegations tonight against Sean Diddy Combs from 120 accusers set to file lawsuits in several U.S. states.
The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward.
The men and women accuse the hip-hop mogul of a long list of violent sexual assaults dating back more than 20 years. Combs is currently being detained in New York after pleading not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering. His lawyer says he denies the new allegations. Coming up, a ride of last resort for migrants desperate to find freedom. Plus, remembering a beloved sitcom TV dad. Tonight, we bring you part 2 of a 5-part series on the perilous journey for migrants willing to risk everything to get into the United States. W5's Avery Haynes joins a group traveling through Mexico on a death-defying journey on top of a freight train.
They are Mexico's most notorious trains, both a lifeline and a death trap.
And this is La Bestia, El Tren de la Muerte, the beast, the train of death.
They're freight trains not meant for humans, but have become a ride of last resort for desperate migrants trying to make it to the U.S. border.
As they are running for it, they can't hold on to the train and it devours them. And they lose either an arm, a leg, or their life.
Literally risking life and limb, families with young children perch precariously between boxcars. The Beast is a free but potentially deadly ride north through Mexico. The most treacherous obstacle between migrants and their American or Canadian dream. This one's come to a brief stop, and so we clamber up just before the Beast lurches forward. The train tears through vast farmland and small towns.
The train's slowing down a bit, and this is actually when it becomes the most dangerous because people will come and try to jump on, unaware that even though it's slow, it's still super dangerous to get on. They get sucked under the tracks.
Wilma is from Venezuela with her son Aiden and cousin Edwin. Wearing a mask to keep warm, he counts off the hours they've been on this train.
17, 18, algo así. Wow. Y es muy duro, ¿no?
Sí, nos mojamos mucho, el frío.
No teníamos con qué cubrirnos, sino con unas bolsas que teníamos ahí. She's telling me that last night it rained. They've been on this train for the last 17, 18 hours. They had nothing to put over themselves. She's traveling with her 10-year-old son.
It's illegal for migrants to board public buses in Mexico, and now it's increasingly difficult for them to ride the rails. Random checkpoints like this are popping up along some routes. This crackdown is part of a deal between Mexico and the U.S., an effort to stop migrants from even getting to the American border.
They've set up a checkpoint right along the tracks where the death train comes barreling through. If they get word that there are migrants on board the train, they stop it here and haul them off.
Haul them off and take them back to the southern border with Guatemala. It's like snakes and ladders. Each move forward comes with a risk of being forced back.
México es un sedazo muy fuerte.
The crossing in Mexico is very hard, and it's made even harder by these policies.
Advocate Father Prisciliano Perazza says it means migrants are increasingly trapped in narco territory.
Te roban, te secuestran.
They rob you, they kidnap you, they rape you, they extort you.
It's not just human threats they face.
Cada puntito rojo.
Every red dot is a death in the desert, but there are many more that we never find.
The U.S.-Mexico border is considered the deadliest land crossing in the world. Hundreds die every year crossing the desert into Arizona.
And tomorrow we bring you Avery's journey along the U.S.-Mexico border as she comes face-to-face with Mexican cartels. Still ahead, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter makes history. One of America's favorite sitcom TV dads has died.
Thought I asked you to take the garbage out. Oh, I will, Dad. That's what you said a half hour ago, Junior. Oh, don't worry, Dad. I got it covered. Now, Junior!
John Amos starred in the 70s hit series Good Times and won an Emmy for his role in Roots. He was 84 years old. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has shared intimate details about Queen Elizabeth's private health battle in the final days of her life. In his upcoming new memoir, Unleashed, Johnson claims the Queen was suffering from bone cancer for at least a year before she died. He was among the last people to meet with the Queen before her death in September 2022. The Queen met 13 American presidents during her lifetime, and among them Jimmy Carter, who made history today as the first former U.S. president to celebrate a 100th birthday. Carter was president from 1977 to 1981, and after losing the election to Ronald Reagan, spent more than 40 years running the nonprofit Carter Center with his wife, Rosalind. She died last year. Jimmy Carter lives in hospice care in Plains, Georgia. After the break, a goat running with the pack to the finish line. An unexpected greatest of all time performance by a four-legged competitor who crashed the race and crossed the finish line. Here's NTV's Bailey Howard on the impressive run and newfound fame.
The word GOAT is now widely known as an abbreviation for greatest of all time. But on Sunday, saying the GOAT ran a race had a double meaning. The Conception Bay South Trailway Trek Half Marathon had a big turnout, along with one gate crasher, Joshua the GOAT.
No, I keep saying this, it just don't seem real.
11-year-old Joshua broke his collar and left his home at Taylor's Pumpkin Patch and joined the pack of runners.
I kind of thought he probably chased the runners, not that he did it before, but I thought at that point he was lost.
Luckily, he was contained by police until he could be reunited with his family.
They put over the radio that they had one in custody, yeah.
But he didn't go home empty-hooved. Joshua got his own medal.
We were going just to go down and pick him up, but then they wanted him to be brought to the end of the race, so which was down Topsail Beach, and he did walk the rest of the race and got pictures with them.
And he's already been invited to come back for next year's race.
They want him to come back next year. He probably won't do the marathon. He is getting older. We won't put him in that. We'll probably take him to the end of the line.
Heidi Taylor says they've had many goats come and go to other farms over the years. But Joshua has been with the family for more than 10 years and has become a staple of their U-Pick pumpkin patch.
We've been operating for over 25 years at U-Pick Pumpkin Farm, but a lot of people were like, oh, I didn't know you were there because they're seeing Joshua. So I expect it's going to be pretty busy starting this weekend when we open on Saturday.
Joshua has a couple of more appearances coming up this week, including opening the town hall meeting in Conception Bay South tonight and at the Renegades hockey game this weekend. Bailey Howard, NTV News.
Good job, Josh. That's a snapshot of this Tuesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.